And then some actions will be coming back after our candle. And this becomes the collective retribution in our society and for our descendants. So how we think is important. And this is there in the first mindfulness training. Can we have thoughts of compassion, of tolerance, not of fanaticism and hatred? How we speak is important. Can we speak in a way that kind of lifts each other up rather than cuts each other down? And the way we act is really important. And maybe like the strongest kind of actions that we may be taking, maybe not the ones we necessarily think are the ones. So for example, Brother Bao Tang was sharing yesterday that the action of 400 or 500 young people walking in peace and freedom on the New Hamlet Hill, that action has gone out into the world. No one can take it away. Here is a thought for you. 100 years from now, would you like people in the world to be walking fast, stressed, chasing after some kind of economic illusion? Sorry. Or would you like them to be walking in peace and freedom, in nature, listening to the natural world, listening to each other, listening to the suffering that is present in themselves and on this planet? And if we want future generations to have this kind of spiritual quality, this freedom, this way of being in the future, we need to start kind of patterning it now. Us doing it now together in this retreat is making it immediately more likely that this will be happening in 100 years' time. If we go from this retreat and we choose a stretch of our daily life where we will walk in peace and freedom, listening to the earth, listening to the suffering of the world, that immediately we are kind of making it more probable that that will happen and be available for future generations 100 years from now. It is a very powerful action. If we lose the capacity to walk in peace and freedom, there is no doubt that future generations will not have the capacity to walk in peace and freedom. This is the Buddhist understanding of action. What we do and how we are counts. And this gets really interesting because the kind of future we want to create, we are creating every day with our body, with our choices, and with our way of being. So for example, another kind of bodily action that's really important is our way of consuming. Tai had a kind of quite particular analysis of what is going on in our economy and society right now. He said that we are a culture of consuming that is over-consuming, consuming too much, because we are consuming to cover up our suffering because we do not know how to suffer. You can imagine, you can very easily see all the industries that we have to help us cover up our suffering as a society because as a society, we don't know how to suffer. And he said that the great power of reclaiming our right to be happy, our right to be happy with few conditions, with simple living, with not consuming much, is a resistance to that collective culture of consuming that is destroying the planet. If we know how to suffer and how to be happy, we don't need to consume as society is pushing us to consume. Do you see that? It's a really interesting thing because right away, our own practice of mindfulness, handling our painful feelings, and giving ourselves the right to be happy, claiming our happiness, reclaiming it, has a direct kind of alternative economic vision and impact. So our mindfulness has something to do with the economic structures that we're living in. We can resist the culture of consuming if we know how to be happy, not through consuming, but by being with the painful feelings, accompanying them, taking care of our time, finding ways to be with others, to be with nature. So according to the Buddhist principles of action, changing ourselves and changing the system it's like two sides of the same reality. There's no system that is outside of the humans that created it. When we as humans can transform ourselves, the system is changing. And that is why we could also say that the 5 mindfulness trainings are like a Plum Village vision for systems change. And it's very interesting. We don't say, we reduce the system to personal change, right? We don't say that we are not challenging and confronting larger power structures, but we are not diminishing or denying ourselves the agency and freedom that we do have as awakened humans. We won't let them take away that freedom and agency. There's another thing I would like to say about action. When we want to challenge the system that we live in, the most powerful way we can challenge it is by bringing a different energy to that system. So we don't use the tools of the system to fight that system. We find ways to step outside of it and offer a completely different energy and way of being. That is a radical challenge to the system. That's our spiritual resistance. So the question for each one of us is, how are we kind of taking care of this spiritual energy in our daily life? How are we keeping that flame, the fire, the bodhicitta of intention in our heart to kind of, freedom. I want to say freedom is a practice that we will need to keep alive each week, each day, moving on from this retreat. And our connection to our own internal kind of spiritual dimension through the energy of mindfulness is what will help us keep our freedom from the system that we're in and ultimately create a different kind of future. And what is interesting about our communities of resistance, as you have discovered this week, because we're not afraid of suffering, we're being with suffering, as a community, there's a kind of mechanism that is happening, which is the more we're with suffering, the more compassion we generate. So communities of resistance who are awake to suffering are naturally generating compassion. And we heard also in the Q&A yesterday a concern that maybe compassion and non-violence can neutralize, like have an effect of neutralizing the struggle and the fight. Being with suffering, generating compassion in the face of suffering, that kind of compassion can be very powerful. In Buddhism, we speak about compassion being as fierce as thunder. It's a powerful energy, the energy of compassion. And the energy of compassion can kind of create and it can build. And the energy, when we act and resist and respond to the system with a different kind of energy, the system has greed in it, the system has craving in it, hatred, discrimination in it. And we want to create a different kind of energy. So that energy of compassion and non-violence is a powerful alternative. It is not weak, but it carries within it, it is kind of, it has within it the possibility for sort of regenerative new ways of being, in the way that hatred and discrimination can only destroy, but kind of compassion can create. And one time Thai was asked about why the monastics didn't go on more protests and why he didn't go to more kind of peace conferences. And Thai said, we want to demonstrate that another way of living is possible. We want to embody and create an alternative way of being. That's what you're all tasting and experiencing now. That's a vision that Thai had. I want hundreds, thousands of young people to experience something different, to show that another world is possible. And that is very powerful. It is as powerful and more powerful than just tearing down. We build up again and show that something else can be created. Thai said that we can't change the world if we can't change our way of seeing, our way of thinking, our consciousness. And the shortest way we could say about the right way of seeing and thinking is the insight of interbeing. With the insight of interbeing, we see that life is precious, the world is precious, humans are precious, the planet is precious. We see that we are deeply connected to the earth, and we're deeply connected to the humans around us. And when we can keep this insight alive with the 5 mindfulness trainings, we are cultivating a whole new way of seeing and being in the world. When we see that the earth is not just matter, but is alive, has given rise to life, is kind of sacred and precious, we cannot have a job or act in a way that treats the earth only as a resource to be exploited. And at a societal scale, this is what is happening. We're seeing the earth not as something sacred, not as something alive, and that is why it's possible for us to exploit the earth. As a society, we may see humans also as a resource to be utilized for profit, for exploitation. And so long as we see humans as a resource rather than ourselves, we may even see ourselves as a resource, treat our body as an instrument to earn a living and a salary. But we are a wonder of life. We are a child of the earth. Our body is also sacred, and how we take care of our body is so important. Any act of seeing our own human bodily dignity also makes possible justice, equity, and a society in which all humans have dignity and respect and are treated with respect. So there's a deep connection between our way of seeing and understanding like what a human is, what the earth is, and the kind of society we are creating for future generations. So in our way of being and acting, moving on from this retreat, please like see yourself as this, like this candle. It is not only some kind of professional action that is like your legacy, your contribution to the world. How you are, how you live, how you think and how you speak is imprinting that, is making that possible in the world for the present moment, but also for future generations. If we want to live in a world where humans can collaborate with each other, we need to learn right now in our time, in our generation, to collaborate, to be and sit and listen to people who have different views. If we draw a line and reject someone now, that energy, that cancelling, that rejection, that denial of humanity to that other person, that is what we're imprinting for future generations. Future generations will struggle more to collaborate. They won't be able to sit in a room with people they disagree with. And if as humans we're going to face the challenges ahead, we need to do so as a collective, as a diverse collective, different views, different cultures, different spiritual traditions. And that means that we need to be uncomfortable with uncomfortable feelings, uncomfortable being in rooms with people who have different views, and learn to understand, to be curious, to collaborate, to listen. And that is why one of the most powerful skills that we've transmitted to you this week has been this skill of deep listening. And in the climate movement, this is the training that is most kind of valued and that we're called on to give in different settings, because we cannot kind of solve issues in the current kind of polycrisis unless we can listen to each other and harness kind of collective insight to find a way out. And so even our way of listening is a powerful action that we are kind of imprinting and making possible for future generations so that we can truly have a better world.